Here tonight. I'm Sal Kumela. I'm the new executive director here at the museum. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our generous sponsors who make our programs possible. Tonight's program is sponsored by Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, Florida Humanities, the City of Gainesville, Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture, the Florida Council on Arts and Culture, and the state of Florida. I'd also like to take the opportunity to share with you our next program. It is here, November 13th at 7 p.m. It is Florida, A History in Pictures with Jeff Davies and Mike McGinnis. Admission is free with pre-registration at www.mathesonmuseum.org. As a nonprofit institution, the Matheson relies on the support of our community through memberships, donations, and volunteer efforts. If you're not already a member, we'd love to have you as part of the museum family. You can get more information about how to support us on our website or by speaking to any of our staff. Now I'm delighted to introduce tonight's speaker, Yvette Carter, who serves as the Government Affairs and Community Relations Director for GRU. She's been named one of the Business in Greater Gainesville magazine's Fierce Award winners, was recognized by the Girl Scouts Gateway Council as the 2017 Women Who Make a Difference Award winner, has been awarded the Community Service Award by the Alachua County NAACP, and was honored as a Woman of Distinction by Santa Fe College. Tonight, she will share with us the fascinating life and long-reaching legacy of Miss Cora Roberson. Cora's long list of accomplishments includes being the first woman to run for a seat on the Gainesville City Commission in 1968, being the first Black woman to teach white students at Kirby Smith Elementary, being a founding member of the first Black Greek-lettered organization in Alachua County, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, being the first director of the Alachua County Head Start program for 34 years, being a founding member of the Gainesville Women for Equal Rights, and those are just to name a few. Please join me in welcoming Yvette Carter.
Hey, hey, hey. Ooh, it's so many people. I'm so excited. So I see so many faces that I love. So I'm going to just start with a quick saying by Dr. Benjamin Mays, Elijah Mays. He was the president of Morehouse College when Dr. King was just Martin, and he was one of his mentors. And so this to me sums up Cora's life and what we should strive to. I have only just 1 minute, only 60 seconds in it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give an account if I abuse it. Just one tiny little minute, but all of eternity is wrapped up in it. Okay? So what that says to me is we don't have very much time on this side of heaven. But while we're here, we have a charge to keep, right? The church folks know what the other part, y'all know what the other part is, but we definitely have a charge to keep. And every minute of her 96 years, Cora filled it. I have so many things that I would like to say about her, but I wrote something down when she passed away, so that's what I'm gonna read it today so that I don't miss anything. But there are a couple of things that I want to do. One, there are so many people in this room who knew her longer and better than me. I'm gonna share a little bit after I give this talk of kind of my relationship with Cora, my favorite memories of her. But I want you all to do that as well, because that's what tonight for me is about. It is recalling, honoring, and reverencing a Gainesville hidden figure, one, but really just a truly phenomenal Black woman. Golly. And I say Black because she was proud to be Black. She was a woman. She was a Christian. She was a mother. She was all of that stuff. But honey, if you talked to her, she was making sure that you knew that she was Black. So that's why I say that. Give a couple of disclaimers. One, Cora was a Christian, so I may refer to God. Please don't be offended. Two, She was Black, so I'm going to say Black a bunch of times. Please don't be offended. 3, I am partial to an organization that she was a member of and chartered in this county, so I'm going to talk about the Zetas kind of a lot. And while I'm doing that, there are Zetas in this room. Would you please stand to be recognized members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated? You'll hear in my talk how Cora was one of the 5 women who brought that organization to Alachua County when we didn't have anything of its kind here in 1951. Second, this is kind of the protocol, little church stuff. I do want to acknowledge another organization that I'm a member of, and they kind of they co-sponsored this event, and really the reason why I'm here tonight, the Alachua County League of Women Voters. If you are a member of League of Women Voters, will you please stand? Thank you. Thank you. Sappho, remain standing. Of the League of Women Voters, listen, y'all, I'm church, so we got to do this part and then we're going to get to the word. Oh, is that all right? All right. Sappho is one of my closest friends. I call her Ace. Her name is Gwendolyn, but I don't ever call her that. Sappho is the vice president of our local chapter, chapter of the League of Women Voters. And when the Smithsonian had their voter rights education empowerment display here, it's not a display, what's the exhibit is the museum word, y'all. When they had their exhibit here, Sappho told me about it and I was like, oh, so Cora was in it, right? And she said no. And I was like, oh, well, it was not complete if Cora Roberson was not in it. And so she said, okay. She came back to me a week later and said the Matheson would like for someone to talk about Cora tonight. So thank you, Sappho, for being forward thinking and allowing us to talk about Cora tonight. Yes, let's give it up for Sappho. I believe protocol has been established. With the exception of I would like to continue, and I'm sure that I have the permission of our elder in the room. Do I have permission to begin? All right, so let's go. All right, y'all. The life of Cora P. Roberson. Again, I am going to do something that people who know me are going to be surprised. I'm going to read this because I normally don't stick to a script. It's hard for me. I'm going to try real hard because I don't want to miss anything. And really, these few pages that I have doesn't scratch the surface. This comes from many firsthand accounts from Cora herself. She lived 96 years, so we had many opportunities to sit at her feet. It also comes from a very thorough Sam Proctor oral history that she did on February 19th, 1986, her wedding anniversary. She said it like 3 or 4 times in the thing. She was talking to Joel Buchanan. I believe she was like, look, I gotta go. This my anniversary. It's my anniversary. So let's finish this. And then it comes from accounts from many of my sorority sisters who knew Cora for many, many, many years. So what you'll hear tonight, you may have heard before, you've seen before. I am not plagiarizing because I just gave credit. So I can't go to jail because I'm not even charging for this. So I can't go to jail for it because it's free and I'm just sharing information. Okay, all right, let's get started. Visionary, educator, activists, trailblazers. Those are just a few words that aptly describe Cora Peterson Roberson. She would shy away from all of them and just simply say that she was a child of God who gave the best that she had to give. On Thursday, September 24th, 1920, the Almighty God called home his cherished daughter. She now sits among the revered ancestors and enjoys her well-earned eternal rest. Let me just pause. I'm going to say Cora tonight, be real familiar, but I would never say that to her face. And I do have home training. I know I have to put a handle on it, a miss, a soror, or something. But just for tonight, if y'all will give me that little bit of leverage, I'm going to just call her Cora because Otherwise, I'll be saying Cora Roberson, and half of y'all will be like, what's a soror? Okay. All right. So Cora was born on Tuesday, April 29th, 1924. She was the oldest of 9 children in the Peterson household. In those days, most Black people didn't go to hospitals. So her mom traveled to Edgar, Florida. Who knows where Edgar, Florida is? It's now called Johnson, Florida. Who knows where Johnson is? Okay, Johnson is right on the other side of Hawthorne, right located east of Hawthorne in Palatka County. I mean in Putnam County. And so her mother was assisted in childbirth by her great grandmother. Her great grandmother was a midwife. She oversaw the labor and delivery to that baby girl, and it was in the family home, which was how many Black folk were born back in 1924. I dare to say, I might be wrong. I better not say it because it's historians in here. I'm gonna say almost all. I don't know any in 1924 that were born in a hospital. Am I right? Am I wrong? It's possible. It's very possible. So when her mother surpassed the customary postpartum stay, y'all know what that is. In the house for how many weeks? 6 weeks. Don't touch no food. Don't hug nobody. Nobody can't touch you. When she passed that postpartum stay, then she and the baby went back to Gainesville, Florida, which is where Cora lived out the remaining days of her life. Cora had fond memories of living in her family household with very meager beginnings and meager means. Her family they lived in a small lot, and she used to always say the address. So I'm going to say the address: 1227 Northeast 3rd Avenue. Back then it was called East Court Street. So if anyone ever talked to Cora, I'm sure you guys heard about 1227 North 3rd Avenue. The house is still there, I think, today. It was a small 4-bedroom house, which was overcrowded because of that close-knit family of 9 children and 2 parents. The family grew much of the food that they ate. She talked about having them grow beets and carrots and strawberries and string beans and greens. She also mentioned that they had chickens. She said that her mother loved to garden and would also often lecture to them, if there is room to walk, there is room to plant. So they grew most of their food on that tiny little lot in the middle of Gainesville. Cora matriculated through the Alachua County Public School System. She attended Lincoln High School, really Lincoln School, from 1st grade through 12th grade. Back in those days, Lincoln High School was located on Northwest 5th Avenue and 8th Avenue, which is now, the building is still there. It's now the Quinn Jones School. It was a 2-story building which housed elementary school kids on the 1st floor, and then the upper grades, the high school kids on the 2nd floor. There was no busing for Black students, so the local kids had to walk to school. Since Lincoln was the only school for Blacks in Alachua County, and let me just say, it was opened in 1923, it was the 2nd accredited high school for Blacks in the state of Florida. So that is another bit of history. Her life really mirrors and kind of flows through Gainesville and Alachua County history. So the major parts of her life, we can just tie to all kinds of parts of history, like how our town migrated, how segregation was. All of that you can see through Cora's life. So since the kids didn't have buses, they walked to school, and it was the only school for Blacks in Alachua County. The kids from outlying towns would either drive into town, or they were bored for the week with families and then go home on the weekends. Can you imagine that? Your child, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, staying with somebody else all week and then just coming home on the weekends. I had 5 head of children, so I probably would have wanted that, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine that. Cora was so proud to learn under the watchful tutelage of caring Black teachers, and the legendary professor, they called him Prof. Jones, Professor A. Quinn Jones, who served as that principal from 1923, and I believe until the mid 50s, 56 to 56. I do know we have a Lincoln High School expert in the room, so if I keep looking at her, I just want to make sure that I don't get anything wrong. She graduated from the historic Lincoln High School on April 19th, 1943. She loved teaching. She used to talk about that even as a child, she used to play school with her siblings. And then as soon as she was old enough, she was a Sunday school teacher at her church. Her mother often said that she was born and called to teach. Because the family didn't have funds for her to go to college, she had to work for a year before she went to college. And she worked in the cafeteria at the University of Florida to earn money. With the money that she saved and a scholarship from First Presbyterian Church in downtown Gainesville, she began her collegiate career in 1944 at Florida Memorial College in St. Augustine, Florida, which is now Florida Memorial University, and it's in Miami. I'll stop to tell you that every time I talk to her, at some point she mentioned that First Presbyterian Church and how that white church gave her money to go to that school, and how that really showed her that people are people and they care about people. She used to always talk about that. She attended Florida Memorial for 2 years before having to take a break to earn more money to complete her studies. So back then, there were no student loans. Her parents weren't able to pay. Look, they were in a better spot than I'm in, because I'm still paying student loans. But they didn't often go to school straight through if their parents didn't have the means. So she worked for a couple of years, or worked for a year, went to school for a couple of years, had to go work for another year in Jacksonville, and then came back to go to school. But she finished school with no student loans. She was winning. She was definitely winning. So she worked in Jacksonville at Cohen Brothers Department Store cafeteria. I am told by her that that was a big, famous store in Jacksonville. I don't know anything about it. It's not there now, but it was everybody who was somebody knew about Cohen Brothers back in the day. She was determined to complete her goal, so she returned to Florida Memorial and was conferred a Bachelor of Science degree in education in 1950. She went on to earn a master's degree from Tuskegee Institute. Now it's Tuskegee University. Yes. Oh, yes. She got her master's from the Tuskegee Institute, which is now the Tuskegee University. Come on, Ram. It's Golden Tigers. Golden Tigers. Okay. Among other educators, she would travel back and forth to Tuskegee on weekends, on breaks, on holidays, so that she can complete her degree program. Some of the people that she traveled with that also got their degree from there was Annie McGee. If anyone, and we'll hear about Annie McGee in a minute. She was somebody special to the Zetas. To Thomas Coward, if anybody knew Thomas Coward, and then his wife, Donna Coward. They would travel together back and forth, up and down the road from Gainesville to Tuskegee every chance they got to be able to get their master's degrees in education. So when she finished college, when she returned to Gainesville in January 1950, because it was the middle of the school year, she was unable to be hired in the school system. So she began her career as a teacher at the University of Florida, working at night to teach military veterans so that they could get their GEDs. The classes were also held sometimes at UF, sometimes at Lincoln High School, mostly at Lincoln High School, but every now and then they would allow the students to be at UF. And this was in 1950, pre-integration. So that was pretty big. So for her, she used to say this was a very rewarding assignment. She was able to help many men get their high school diplomas, which we know is the GED. In fact, her husband, it would have been her future husband, was one of the beneficiaries of this program. She ended up becoming a teacher at her alma mater the next fall year, so in fall of 1950 at Lincoln School. It was renamed in 1957 to A. Quinn Jones School. So she began her career in elementary education at Lincoln. She also used to tell like stories and get excited about she taught elementary school kids in the day and grown men at night. She used to always say that I taught elementary kids schools in the day and grown men at night. She also she proudly taught in our system, in the Alachua County system, for many, many years, all of those years in elementary education. She is credited, as was said by Sal, as one of the first Black educators in our school district to teach white students. That was when she accepted a position at Kirby Smith School in the mid-1960s. She also served as a homeschool liaison and it eventually became an administrator. She told me that how she became a homeschool liaison was when she first got to Kirby Smith, which is, y'all see right across the street is the school district. That used to be Kirby Smith Elementary. So when she got to Kirby Smith, the students were coming, I'm going to be very Gainesville colloquial, off Lake Road. So back then, Lake Road was predominantly white. This was pre I-75, remember? This was pre the Great Migration West. So it was predominantly white. And so the parents of the students were concerned about a Black woman teaching them. So she said, well, I'm just gonna do what Prof. Jones taught me to do. When she was at Lincoln, those kids didn't get a break because if they didn't come to school, the teachers were going knocking on their doors. She would go knock on their doors along with all the other teachers to ask why they weren't in school, to talk to their parents. Do they need to be picked up tomorrow? Do they need something to eat? What can we do because they need to be in school? Well, she decided to do that at Kirby Smith. So she used to go out on Lake Road, sit on the porches with the good white folk, and she said that they well received her. You know, she helped with clothing. The people weren't of grand means, so she helped with clothing. She helped with food, all out of her pocket, to build a rapport with those families, with those parents, and with those students. So that is how she ended up becoming an official homeschool liaison, because the Black teachers were doing it way before it was a job. It was just a part of what they did. And at some schools, they still do. I know Karen and Sharon Learning School, they will call your mama in a minute. Like, where's that student? It is 10 o'clock. Your child is not here. What's going on? Uh-oh. I need my eyes. So not only was she an administrator, she was also a staff member at the University of Florida. In 1966, they had a summer institute in English. So she taught English at UF in 1966. And then in 1967, they had an institute of teachers of disadvantaged youth. So she taught that program as well. Kind of trailblazing. She was at the University of Florida again in the 60s, when there were not a whole lot of Black people teaching classes, going to classes at UF. She was doing that. Again, she made history as being one of the only Blacks to instruct a class of whites by serving as a teacher corps trainer for up and coming teachers. Her final post in education was to serve as the first full-time executive director of Alachua County Head Start. Once the program became full-time, it started out as part-time and there was someone else doing it, but when it became a full-time program, she became the executive director. Everyone knows that Head Start is for pre-kindergartners, and she did that, as he said, for 34 years. It was, she used to always talk about, this was funded by the government. This was federally funded. She would always say that, and she would say, and it's still funded today. So she never took for granted that something was going to be here. And in her 90s is when I became close to her. She would talk about, and that was a funded by the government. It was federally funded, and it's still here today. So I put that in my wording just so that you all would know that Cora was excited that Head Start is still going strong that many years later. She would often say that out of all the things that she did, her time at Head Start was the most challenging and the most rewarding of her career. She retired again in 1984 after 34 years of dedicated service to Head Start. The love of her life, Charlie Roberson, they met and were married again, like I told you, on February 19th, but in the year 1954. He was a native of Nassau County, and he moved to Gainesville in 54. He was one of her students in the class. He was a World War II veteran of the Army. He was a fellow educator, eventually a fellow educator. He earned his bachelor's degree from Bethune-Cookman College, which is now Bethune-Cookman University. Okay, I was waiting. This one is one in the room. Um, and then he got a master's from the University of Florida. Together, they did raise two girls, Sharon Gay and Adele. And they, again, I mentioned before, she was a Christian, so they raised her in a Christian household. These two were married for 54 years until his passing. And she would often mention, he passed right here in our home, right here in our home. And it was on June 1st, 2008. Cora truly led a full life. I haven't even gotten to the reason why everyone knows her name yet, and you already see she led a full life. She would want me to say that she was a faithful member of Johnson Chapel Missionary Baptist Church. She served there as a church clerk, as a reporter, as a deaconess, and of course as a Sunday school teacher. She was the past vice president of the historic Camillettes Club. She loved the Zetas and she loved the Camillettes. At home, she loved gardening, planting, and sewing. Some of you may know that she actually ran her own floral nursery out of her home. Um, in addition to gardening, she loved fishing. She would often brag that her family and friends called her the finder because of her skills. And those are her exact words. They call me the fish finders because of my skills. So she was an excellent fisherwoman, fisher person. She liked to fish, y'all. Fisher, period. Cora was also a community activist. She vigorously fought for social justice and civil rights. She was deputized by the late Reverend T.A. Wright as a NAACP volunteer in the 1950s, where so that she would be able to help register Blacks to vote. Additionally, she was one of the founding members of Gainesville Women for Equal Rights. We all call it GREER, which was organized in the 1960s. This was a coalition of Black and white women who worked together towards equality in the local community. I remember Cora talking about GREER, and she would say that the professors' wives at the university, they really didn't have a whole lot to do, but they really cared because they didn't work, but they really cared about equality. She said, well, they didn't come from around here. They came from up north. They came from out west. So their minds were wider than some people's minds here. And so those women came to an organization that I cannot find the name of. I want to say it's like Human Rights. It was the women. It was women and men, and they were meeting before Greer, and it was all Black. I want to say Human Rights something. She used to tell me the name, but I don't recall the name. So the women from the University of Florida started asking, well, how can we get Black women so we can start this thing together? And so they came to that organization, and Cora was a member of that. She, Annie McGee, and others. And that's how Greer was formed in the 1960s. I see back on the wall here, Jean Chalmers is up here. Jean Chalmers was one of the founders, and I was hoping she was going to be here tonight because she knows so much more about Cora than me. They were very, 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 very close friends. She remembered being motivated and doing this work by the teachings of W.E.B. Du Bois. And he said, and she said, because he was pushy about integration and equal rights, that's why I was pushy about integration and equal rights. Take a little bit of point of privilege. One of Mrs. Roberson's most notable achievements was being one of 5 courageous women to charter Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the Delta Sigma chapter here in Gainesville, Florida on Friday, September 21st in 1951. Her efforts in chartering this chapter was trailblazing because it was the first Black letter Greek organization in Alachua County. She was also instrumental in bringing Zeta to the University of Florida in 1974, which became the first Black Greek sorority on that campus. April 3rd, 1974, to be exact. I won't give a shout out to the Mu Epsilon Zetas, even though there are a couple of us in the room. There are a couple of Mu Epsilon Zetas in the room, but I won't go there. She served in essentially every position in her local chapter throughout the years, and she helped to organize the first Amica auxiliary group in Gainesville. For those who don't know, Zeta is the only organization of degreed women, only sorority organization that have auxiliaries, an auxiliary for women who are not degreed. They are women who have our same principles. The only thing that they don't have at this time is a degree. So we want them to be a part of the Blue and White family. Our 4 mothers wanted them to be a part of the Blue and White family. And here in Gainesville, Cora helped to create that auxiliary locally. She was a proud life member of Zeta, and she epitomized our principles, which are scholarship, service, sisterhood, and finer womanhood. Now, this is what all y'all came to hear about. In 1968, Cora P. Roberson was one of 5 candidates to seek office for a seat on the Gainesville City Commission. She was the first woman to run for this public office. Let me just stop and say, she would tell the story, and if you go listen to her Sam Proctor talk with Joel Buchanan, she would in it she talked about, and she said to me personally, these women came to my house when I got off work. They were at my house and they were telling me, we need somebody to run. We don't have anybody to run. And will you do it, Cora? And she said, I can't do it because Charlie not home and I need to talk to Charlie first. She was a woman, a strong woman, but she was definitely living biblically, and she sure did submit to her husband because she was not going to tell those people she was going to run if Charlie wasn't okay with it. So I don't remember which one of them said it to her, but she said one of them said, well, where does Charlie work? Because we can take you to his job. We've got to put this application in by 5 o'clock today. So Charlie agreed, and she did, and he was one of the volunteers on her campaign, one of her strongest supporters, and so she did run for office. We can call her a lot of things, but I don't think we can call her feminist because she had to ask her husband first. I make that mistake often. I do not do that. So that's why they had 54 years of wedded bliss. I got 29 of, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. It's really good. If Wade is watching online, we are perfect together. We are better together. So back on Cora. She stressed in her platform, she stressed a more responsive government, closer city-county relations, expanded use of federal funds, development of a park near Tumbling Creek so that the Black kids would have somewhere safe and nice to play. She supported an open housing ordinance, a municipally owned bus system. There was no RTS when she ran. Urban renewal and changing city government's personnel policies to be open in all areas, and all areas of employment open for the opportunity for all citizens to apply. So she had a very progressive, trailblazing, visionary platform in 1968. All of those things that she was advocating for, we didn't have then. All of those things that she was advocating for, we have now. It's not written in the history books that it's because of Cora that we have RTS, but I'm going to give her the credit. It was on her platform. Okay. And she also served as one of the first, because she said open government, having more participation by the citizenry. And now we have advisory boards. She actually served on one of the very first advisory boards in 1969 after she was not elected for the office. The then mayor commissioners called her and asked her to be on that first board, that first advisory board. Cora's City Commission campaign was against 4 white males, including and her 4 white male candidates, and she included. They didn't have Target, they didn't have Renaissance. I don't know how they didn't have that, because I couldn't live without it. But they had to hand letter signs and posters, and they had to individually type notices and letters. She received the endorsement by the Gainesville Sun, and ultimately ended up in a runoff against lifelong resident Perry McGriff. Who knew Perry McGriff Jr.? Who's heard that name? Yeah, he was a Gator grade. He was a local legend. He was born and raised here. She ended up in a runoff against him. She and her husband campaigned together at night and on weekends as she continued to work full-time as a teacher at Kirby Smith. I think I'm almost done, y'all. I know this is long. She had an integrated campaign team, which included women from Greer and professors from the University of Florida. She came within 819 votes of winning the election. That deserves something. Yeah. She brought out 43% of the registered voters. So she got 43% of the vote. And it forever changed Gainesville political landscape. She said that her campaign was summed up best in the words of a telegram that she received, and she had even on her last day. It said, "Congratulations for such a grand and courageous effort. Best wishes for your continual interest in civic affairs of our city. You are still a winner in our book." She didn't ever tell me who that was from, but she said she would look at it often, and that made it feel like worthwhile that she ran for office. So Cora served to break the glass ceiling for Blacks and women who followed in her footsteps, seeking elected office in Gainesville and Alachua County and all across North Central Florida. In fact, the very next year, 1969, Neil Butler became the first Black person to win election in Gainesville after Reconstruction. We know that man over there on the wall, Josiah T. Walls, was the first to ever win, and he was even mayor of Gainesville. But since Reconstruction, 1969, Neil Butler was the first Black person to win an election. She never thought that her run for office was something historic. She always just wanted to be remembered as a person who wanted to get something done in the community. She wanted to bring attention to disparities in the Black community, and she just wanted to ensure equal opportunity for everyone. Former city Gainesville Mayor Pegeen Hanrahan proclaimed October 11th, 2004, as Cora P. Roberson Day, and she invited all citizens of the city to join her in expressing their appreciation for Cora's courage and sacrifice. She also recognized the depth of her contribution and acknowledged her as a responsible leader, and she also gave credit to her for her lifelong interest in the community. So you heard me say that one of the things on her platform is that she wanted to have a park wanted to have more parks for Black kids to play in. And the one specifically the land that she was specifically speaking of was Tumbling Creek, where Tumbling Creek is that 6th Street? Over on 6th Street, right next to Porter's. At one point in time, all of that was Porter's, but the city had purchased that land by then. And so we the Zetas honored her with the Violet N. Anderson Award some years ago. And in that meeting, in that that reception, we were talking, and so we read, I was doing what I'm doing now. I was reading and going off script. And so I read the part about the park, and I looked up and I said, Cora Roberson, the park is named after you, right? She was like, no. I said, well, what's the park named after? She said, the creek. I said, oh, we gonna change that. And all of my sisters amen me. And then in November of 2019, the city commission did heed to our petitions and unanimously voted to rename the park that was formerly Tumbling Creek Park. They named it in her honor. So on March 14th, 2020, the city dedicated Cora P. Roberson Park, and she was actually there to take part in the festivities. Y'all, this was right when COVID was coming down. Melanie is showing me pictures. She was there. I just want to ask, raise your hand if you were there on that day. Yeah. Yeah. So if you were there on that day, you would have known how excited she was. And let me tell you, that we owe such a big debt of thanks to Lee Feldman and Deborah Bowie, because COVID actually like the 17th or something like that was when it was officially closed down, but the city started hearing rumblings the week before. So there were several events that week that was city sponsored, and they closed all of those events down. So Deborah and Lee called me on the phone, and I said, listen, this lady is 96. She too excited. We cannot, or 95. She was 95 at the time. I was like, we cannot tell her no. She already got her clothes picked out, is laying out them. We cannot tell her no. She had her shoes ready, everything. And so that morning of the 14th, she was up and dressed at 9 o'clock. And the event was at 1. She was up and ready at 9 o'clock. Her nephew, who was her caregiver, one of her caregivers, said to us, she made me bring her out here at 11:30. We've been out here since 11:30. So that was how excited she was to receive that honor. Um, she was joined at that event by some Zeta dignitaries, our 24th International President, Dr. Mary Bro Wright, and our immediate past State Director, Paula Kay. Cora held court. She recounted the plight of Black people and women in Gainesville and Alachua County. She talked about how grateful she was for the recognition, and she told the over 100 attendees that were there at the park dedication that she would remember the park dedication for the rest of her life. And indeed, she did. She reminisced on that day every time we went to see her. Cora earned many recognitions and awards throughout her 96 years of life. In addition to the park renaming, she was also humbled to receive the Rosa Parks Quiet Courage Award in 2009, excuse me, the Violet N. Anderson Award in 2019. She was also featured in a book, We Can Do It, a community takes on the challenge of school desegregation. It was written by Michael Gingler. Gingler. Thank you I didn't want to mess it up, so thank you. This book outlined the challenges that were faced in Alachua County community as it integrated its school system. Cora lived her life in service to others. She was truly remembered. She will be always truly be remembered as a person who embodied the quote of the theologian John Wesley: do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people that you can, for as long as you can. Her memory will be will be forever cherished by generations of grandchildren, her nieces, her nephews, her cousins, her friends, her beloved caregivers. I'm going to say their names because she would also often say their names. Martha and Monica, her nephew Eddie, who she loved with everything in her heart, and her Zeta sisters across the globe. She left an indelible mark on this world, especially the members of Delta Sigma Zeta chapter. May Cora rest in peace. Thank you. Thank you. That's for Cora. That's not for me. That's for Cora. That's for Cora. Library donation. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have my brain is sitting to the right of me. So thank you, brain, for keeping my. So Cora and another one of our chartering members, Dr. Gladys Alexander. Dr. Alexander is still living. She is a spry 100 years old. She turned one. Yes, we all last saw her on September the 21st, and she was just giving it to us. I'm just gonna say it like that. If you know, you know. She was giving it to us real and raw, and with all the class and experience and wisdom that an elder can give. The two of them did something extraordinary for our sorority. They donated many Zeta artifacts, many Delta Sigma Zeta artifacts to the Smathers Library, and Flo Turcott, who is, tell me what your title is, Flo. Did y'all hear that? Literary manuscript archivist. But she is like all things artifacts. So she actually went out to their homes and collected the items and showed them how they would be preserved, because these women did not play, and they wanted to make sure that they were going to be preserved forever. They were going to be done right, and if they were not going to be done right, then they were going to keep them. And so, and they're both, by the way, they're the same age. So at that time, Dr. Alexander was 96 as well, and so they both were like, "Look, they gave you the business, Flo. I do know that." But she was able to get it. So anytime you would like to see artifacts that were held by those two trailblazing women, that is at the Smathers Library. Flo will gladly bring it out to you. She won't let you have it. She won't really hardly let you touch it. Trust me, I've been there. But she will sit with you and let you go through it. So, and it is that means the world to us, because we know in perpetuity that our sorority will be forever memorialized at the University of Florida. Oh, the founders of Zeta were the Zeta was founded in 1920 at Howard University. So the founders are some different people, but the people who brought it here, the charter members, were Dr. Gladys Alexander, Cora Roberson, Annie McGee, Wilma Holloway, Julia Harper. I don't know how I keep forgetting Julia Harper, because she is literally one of my favorites. um, and Julia, and they were all first in some way, shape, or form. I believe Julia Harper was the first teacher at PK Young, the first Black teacher at PK Young. But listen, so this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I want to open it up, because I have several memories, personal, special memories of Cora Roberson, but I'm sure that all of you do too. So there's a microphone there. I think this would be, I don't know, how much time do we have left, Sal? I talked for a whole hour. No, because you started late. I didn't talk for the whole hour. I did not talk for a whole hour. Okay, yeah. But I did talk for a long time. Y'all know I like to talk. But it was about Cora, so it was important. So pointing. If you have a question, yes. But if you have a memory, absolutely yes.
Good evening. My name is Katura. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. So first, thank you so much for sharing. I was blessed to be able to attend the park renaming and dedication to the triumphant Cora Roberson. And it was inspirational to me as a young woman in service to hear and see a servant receive their flowers in life. And I'll always hear the echo of her saying, and she said this verbatim, she said, "This made my life."
Yes.
were the words that she used. This made my life. And so every opportunity that we have to celebrate our servants and thank them while they're here and not, when they've gone is vital. So when it was time for her funeral, which is actually where I wanted to rise to comment, because I would love to hear you speak a bit about her funeral, because it was the funerals are for the survivors more than for the departed. And so that was just kind of completely a full circle moment because she already had all of her celebration, and this was, more for those that would end up carrying her torch on. So I wanted you to maybe just say a thing or two about that
Okay.
funeral. Thank you.
Okay. I think what Miss Acevedo would like for me to say is the park was named for Cora in March of 2020. And in September of 2020, we were honored that the family allowed the funeral to be at the park. So it was during COVID. Of course, COVID was still very rampant. So really the only funerals that they were having were graveside services. And so I don't know who asked, but someone, maybe I'm going to give the credit to her mentee and one of her closest, she would call her daughter, Alina Lawson Bennett, probably brought it up that, well, if we're going to have it outside anyway, couldn't we just have it at the park? And so we had the funeral. The family, had the funeral at her park. And again, that was the place that she said it made her life. So to be able to honor her life and to the culmination of her life to be on those grounds was really important and really wonderful to all of us. Yeah, thank you. Any other memories? Questions? Come on if you have a memory. Yeah.
So this really isn't a question, but I wrote to Jean Chalmers and I said, "Oh, we really miss you here. Yvette thought you were going to be here." So she wrote, "I have been tied up with a client until just now. So sorry to miss a program about dear Cora."
Thank you. Thank you. I think I mentioned that they were very close and that they worked on Greer together, but that, I don't know if you guys know that relationship lasted from the 1960 to 2020. And they were in constant contact with each other down through the years. I've heard that, or Cora used to say that she and Jean would talk about Jean's campaign. When Jean was in office, what would happen at the commission meetings, Cora would call and give her her opinion. And so she was a trusted advisor, I would say, of Miss Chalmers. So that, I think that's pretty neat that thank you for doing that, and that she sends her love about Cora. Any other thoughts? Anybody want to share something about Cora? If not, I'll tell you what my fondest memory of her were our phone calls. I met her again in her twilight years, and I kind of attached myself to her. If you get me, you kind of stuck with me. Dr. Leonetta McNeil, you stuck with me. And I will just sit at your house. I will run my mouth. I will listen to your stories, because what I do know is that is how my history is transferred, is orally. And so to me, being able to sit at her feet, we used to talk on the phone at least once or twice a week. And I used to ask her every time when I hung up, okay, am I your favorite now? Because I know Alina was your favorite last time. Am I your favorite now? And she would always say, you getting close. You getting close. I never surpassed Alina Lawson Bennett, but I got close. um, And so it was just a joy to again sit at her feet and to learn about Gainesville history, kind of learn about like how the migration happened, and because she's the one who told me it was because they put that highway over there. That's why, she just really her life for us was like phenomenal, and seeing it on paper, 14 pages, it seems really big, but for her and for Black folk back in that time, it was normal. It was normal to work and go to school and not have any debt. It was normal to not live beyond your means. It was normal to fight for your rights. She was not the only one. She's getting the shine today, but she is representative and indicative of our culture in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 2024. And it's pretty pivotal that I'm not talking politics, I'm not telling my politics, but it is pretty pivotal that we're talking about a first, albeit she did not win, but she was a courageous first. And nationally we have a first that is there. So it's really apropos that we're talking about Cora in such a time as this. Thank you.
I think you took my words as we sit in this room and we look at these walls and we think about Cora being the first Black woman in Alachua County. We're on the precipice of the first Black female president of the United States.
Oh,
And she lost by 819 votes. So if we do nothing else for Cora, let's make sure that we get the vote out.
thank you. Thank you. Praise God. I was waiting for her to come up. They
I
won't.
don't think I need the mic. But what I wanted to say,
May I bring
Is-
it to you?
beg your pardon?
May I bring it to you?
Well, I won't.
I would be
thank you.
happy to bring it.
Thank you so much. What I wanted to say, President and Basileus, is that 50 years ago, when Julia Harper, Donna Coward, Ann McGee, Dr. Gladys Alexander, and the fabulous Cora Roberson, we were brought in during that time, Miss Rose, Chief Rosa Rutledge, myself, and I want to say one other person, and I'm not remembering because her husband was a principal at Duval. Oh, Jackson, I just thought of it. Jackson was the third person with us, but we were the initiates of the thing that you mentioned tonight, all of the bringing in at the University of Florida, the first Black Greek organization. Well, during that time, we were probates as well. And so I remember those days so vividly. And 50 years later, two of us are still alive.
Mhm.
And to have gone to Indiana a couple of months ago to get our crystal dove pen.
Hmm.
But what I wanted to also say about Cora Roberson, she lived off of the Kincaid Road, and that's the road where you are passing Prairie View Elementary
Mhm.
and that big brick house over on the right-hand side. That was her home. And I spent many hours with her. And many hours she would come over on my side of town where Dr. Alexander lived. And we spent some joyous times. Good food, good fellowship, all of the great things. And all of us were in education. I was considered the baby. And so when you're 76, and I look back at those days, and I was the baby of the group, but they nurtured me because I'm not from Gainesville, I'm from Orlando. And so they had to teach me all of the great things that occurred in Alachua County. And boy, oh boy, did I have some history that I had to learn. So I appreciate Cora Roberson so very much, so very much. She was like a second mother to so many of us and a sister at the same time. Thank you so much, the Matheson Center,
Mhm.
for having this event. I hope it's recorded, and if it is, that people who were not able to come will be enjoying it from the comfort of their homes. But thank you, Sal. Thank you so much. And to my president, you're fabulous.
That was for Cora, not for me. But if there are no other sayings, I will end. If y'all haven't noticed by now, yes, y'all, I took off one shoe. Did y'all see that? I'm sure. I'm short. Um, for those of you who haven't realized by now, I'm a quote person. So I'll end with my favorite quote, which I also feel like sums up Cora Roberson. And I do want to just end by saying thank you all for coming out tonight and just listening to just this little snippet of Cora's life. You can learn more again on her oral history if you go to the city's website, Cora Roberson Park. If you look up Cora Roberson Park, there's a little thing that says learn more about Cora. They have a kind of like a video mini website about her. So I am so appreciative of the city of Gainesville for doing that. But I'll end by saying this, and I'll take my seat. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let that which I cannot do stop me from doing that which I can. Thank you.